It's been a long week, right? Are you ready to wind down? Why not? It's time for the Wine Time Fridays podcast with Shelley and Phil. Neither are sommeliers, but both have a deep passion for life, each other, and of course, delicious wine. And now, here to talk about this week over a glass of wine is Shelley and Phil. It's wine time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Wine Time Fridays with Shelley and Phil on this episode 213, May 17th. Happy Friday, Shelley. It's wine time.
Happy Friday.
You're always trying to throw around with the different bills. Today we have, surprise, another guest. We have got a whole bunch of guests lined up, which is really fun, because we don't know very much about wine, but our guests know a whole lot. Today, we are joined by Matthew Russell, which we will fondly and affectionately call Matty from here on out, the associate winemaker at Patricia Green Cellars. Matty, welcome to Wine Time Fridays.
Thank you very much.
Okay, catching up, because Matt only has wine in his glass. So we have just opened the 2021 Patricia Green Cellars Estate Chardonnay. That is the first true bottling for a while, right?
It's our first Estate Chardonnay bottling. It's the first time that Chardonnay's been planted in our vineyard. Well, since Jim and Patty owned it.
Yeah.
This was top grafted in 2018 onto some Pinot that never really got to the ripeness we were looking for. And so this right here is our Ribbon Ridge version of Chardonnay. In the past, we've made it from other vineyards, Durant Vineyard in the Dundee Hills. And then back pre-2008, we made Chardonnay from Four Winds Vineyard, which was McMinnville AVA.
Oh, got it. To health, wealth, and abundance, gratitude, romance.
Peace on earth.
Cheers. And cheers, Matty.
Cheers.
This has got a very bright nose on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
very clean.
Yeah, we very much wanted to showcase the minerality in the soil here, and so we very much shoot for that lifted lemon meringue kind of feeling. That we feel like you get from this site with Chardonnay, and a little plug to our friend at Brick House. That's where we got the cuttings to top graft this
nice.
Chardonnay. His vineyard's just over the hill from us in Ribbon Ridge, and we felt like this would be a good representation. So,
how far up the vine do you graft that?
Did you say how far up the vine do you graft?
Yeah, how far off the soil line are you grafting when you top graft it? Is it actually
we're just below the head, so we'll go up and we'll shave the head a little bit, and then we'll top graft on the side of that. So typically about 30 inches off the ground.
Got it.
When you do that, how long do you have to wait for grapes?
Well, you'll lose a vintage, but then we had really good take. The boys in the vineyard did a really good job of doing the top grafting. So our first take was about 95%, which is really good.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. And so, it was quite successful. And so we had a 1 year break, and then the 21 was our first. So 19, we grafted it, or after 18, we grafted it. So we lost 19, and then 2020, obviously, because of the fires. We didn't get a harvest out of it, and then 2020 was our first vintage, and we top grafted it so that way we didn't have to wait 7 years for new Chardonnay vines when we could top graft it and have 20-year-old Chardonnay plants.
So what's
that's amazing that you can do that.
Is the rootstock then Pinot Noir?
Yes.
Okay. And is this particular rootstock hardy? We have,
it's phylloxera resistant rootstock. Yes.
Okay, got it. How did you guys fare in mid-January, when we had that? At least here in Coeur d'Alene, and I know in Eastern Washington they had these -degree, if not colder, weather for 3 to 5, 6 days.
Yeah, it takes a lot longer for that to have any adverse effects for us. And plus, we didn't quite see that cold of temperatures. We flirted a little bit here last month we had a couple nights that got down to 32 on the floor.
Really?
Luckily, about
you already pushing
about 33. So we kind of skated out of the frost.
Do you have movers or air movers?
No, we don't have no. So we're in 22. We definitely felt the brunt of the frost.
Got it. You're pushing bud break around that time, aren't you?
Yeah, but bud break's getting earlier and earlier.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder why.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, Jim and I were just in Burgundy, and every winemaker that we met with discussed global warming and how it's becoming more and more uncertain whether you're going to be able to get a grape harvest. I don't know if you know this, but a week ago, Chablis lost everything.
Really?
No, we did not.
There won't be a harvest in Chablis this year. It was completely destroyed by hail.
What?
Wow.
By hail? Oh my gosh, that's horrible.
Yeah. So it's getting more and more tough to be consistent, and you pretty much have to be on your toes because you never know what's going to happen.
Sure. I have in my notes to talk. This seems like a good time as any to talk about that 2020 vintage that you already referred to.
Yeah.
Because you can't have smoke taint, right? Although it's okay to have a smoky wine, like Fume Blanc or something, but that's the same thing. But
I tend to like to keep my ashtrays and my wine separate.
I don't blame you at all.
Yeah.
So 2020, you had zero production, kind of like Chablis is going to have zero production.
We picked the day before the fire started.
Oh, wow.
And so, and the day of basically the day the fire blew in, we had no power, but we still were picking. And so we made wines that were 100% whole cluster because we had no way to do anything but just let it start fermenting. 2020 was going to be a beautiful vintage. The fruit tasted spectacular. The ripening season was good and long, and everything was in tip-top shape, and we were scheduled 3 weeks out to pick basically everything. It was going to be a perfect vintage, and then the fires just came in and completely devastated everything. And at first, this is a once in 100-year event. So for Oregon winemakers, we've read about it and happening in California, but it wasn't something we were too concerned about. It's always something that Southern Oregon has to deal with. And so we started calling around asking people, what should we do? And they were like, don't make wine. And we already started, what? It's too late now. We're already past that point. And everything tasted good until you got about halfway through fermentation. And then we realized that we really had something terrible on our hands. And
no.
we ended up with about 7,000 gallons of wine that we just couldn't. We certainly weren't going to put our name on it, and it definitely wasn't anything potable. And so we started to look around for different options. And in learning about smoke taint, we heard about wineries that distilled it. And so we met a woman that was working at a distillery, and she distilled it into brandy for us. And then we, looked into maybe selling it in the bulk market. But unless you live in Wisconsin, people don't really drink brandy in America anymore. So we looked into how can we make something different out of this, something different and unique and very Oregon. And so the woman that distilled it came up with the idea of using the brandy kind of like you would corn distillate in bourbon. And so we made whiskey.
This is so cool.
That's where that came from.
This is so cool.
Oregon grown grain and made distillate out of it and added our brandy to it to sweeten it up and give it some texture. And so we made blended whiskey out of it. And so we took the name Patty Green, and now we make Patty Green Whiskey Distillers whiskey out of Pinot Noir brandy and grain distillate from Oregon. So
sure sounds like that's making lemonade out of
lemons,
so to speak.
Yeah, when you we come out of a vintage where we completely lost a whole vintage, and we had to get creative, and we couldn't just dump it down the drain. It was going to cost us a bunch of money to do that. So we decided to get creative and try something different. And I think we created something really cool and unique and different and very Oregon,
Well, if you're going to have to spend a whole lot of money or lose a whole lot of money with a vintage like that, you can turn that around. And you're going to have a few more. Well, you may not have had to buy any equipment because of this partnership with the lady, which is even better.
Right. Yeah. So we just took the barrels that we didn't fill wine with and had them taken apart because the wine only penetrates about 1/8 of an inch. And so we just shaved them down to fresh oak and then had them toasted and charred for whiskey. So we just used our same barrels that were going to sit empty for a year and started filling them up. And so now we have contracts with local farmers to grow grain for us, and we ended up buying the distillery, and so
sounds like a win-win.
Lindsay makes the brandy and the whiskey distillate, and we blend it and age it here, and we sell it on site. So
love that.
Started another business.
So you're going to keep doing that then?
Yeah, we're going to keep going. There's been pretty good response from it. We've started a small little whiskey club, and we're going to see where it takes us.
Didn't Goose Ridge have they had something in their tasting room that was a whiskey or a something like that?
A brandy. I think it was a brandy.
A brandy, yeah. I just wonder if some of this stuff is who knows? Maybe they heard, hey, you hear what they did down at Patricia Green? We should look into that.
Well, our whole thought was to be sustainable, Right. We need to somehow, in the face of adversity, we can't just lay down and take not having a vintage. So we need to learn how to, if this happens in the future, now we know what to do with it.
Well, we're facing adversity right now because my glass is empty.
Oh no.
It's not quite the adversity that you guys all went through. So I think that we're going to pour this every wine that we're pouring tonight is a 2021 vintage. And this is your Now I'm going to try to say this right. The Wadensvil block Pinot Noir.
Yeah, so this is right next to the Chardonnay. It's in the back side of our vineyard there. This is when Jim and Patty bought the property in 2000. They took over in August of 2000. And this section of the vineyard was all yellowed. The fruit was shriveled. There was obviously a lot of vine stress in this part of the block. And so they just cut all the fruit off of it and decided they were just going to give the plants a rest and start working on it after harvest. And so with 15 years of composting and working the soil in that section of vineyard, we finally got it to a point of a single bottling. And so this would be the fifth rendition of a single bottling out of this block. It's kind of an ode to farming. Jim and Patty always thought that Wadensvil clone in marine sedimentary soil was something very unique and interesting. And so they really wanted to keep this section of the vineyard. It was planted in 1990. So it had some vine age to it, but it was clearly stressed and needed some work in the soil. And so, this is a good homage to what it takes to take care. If you take care of the earth will provide for you. And so this is a good representation of that. This is one of our most popular estate bottlings now. We usually do some kind of whole cluster fermentation, and each year, in 2021, we didn't do any because we had the heat dome right around flowering time. And so the heat dome was when, I don't know if you know this, but we had 118 degree temperatures for 3 days. So
Did not.
And what was the calendar?
It was June. That? So it was mid-June. So we were in the flowering phase. And so what happened is that it was so hot that it burned some of the pistils on the clusters. And so those berries never developed. And so they stayed green in what we call shot berries. And so we didn't do a lot of whole cluster in 21 because we were worried that those would create volatile acidity. And so if you destem, they stay on the clusters. But if you ferment whole cluster, then you're fermenting all that with it. And so we were worried about that. And so we didn't do any whole cluster fermentation in 21.
Is this we should hashtag cheersing on this.
Cheers.
Is the whole cluster fermentation an Oregon thing?
No. It's an old world thing. So, in Burgundy, before they had fancy equipment that took the stems off the grapes, they just threw everything in a vat and stomped on it and let it do its thing. And, that's how wines were made. And so it's just an old world stylistic kind of thing that we really like. We feel it adds a lot of complexity. It also adds a lot of ageability because you're adding a lot of nutrients with the stems that you don't normally get in the skins. And so
cuts out a step too, doesn't it?
Well,
it cuts a step and, it adds tannin and texture that I don't have to add with a barrel.
True. I know that it's your friends down there at Willamette Valley vineyards. They put it right on the label, whole cluster. Yeah. So, they're just that's kind of that's why I asked if it's an Oregon thing. I haven't heard much about that in other regions. but it's kind of interesting. Old world, save a step. There are other potential issues, like you said, when you have that heat, the heat dome, right?
Well,
so,
you also have to have a ripe vintage, and pre 2014 in Oregon, it was tough to get the stems ripe, and so they didn't really do a lot of whole cluster fermentation here. You really need to make sure that the stems are ripe, or otherwise you'll get that green banana kind of characteristic. And it gets a little bit overly Christmas spice, which for us everything's about balance, and so it's got to taste good and got to be a good element before we'll use it.
Are all of your vineyards in the Ribbon Ridge appellation?
No, our vineyard is 52 acres, but 37 of it's planted. The rest of it's just ravine and green space that surrounds the vineyard. But we source mostly from all around the Willamette Valley, Dundee Hills. We try to represent every AVA. Currently, we have some from every AVA but 2.
Oh, wow.
And those are the smaller, kind of a little more obscure, newer AVAs.
Right.
We've been around for 25 years now, so we're lucky enough to work with vineyards that have vine age to them and historical context, which really helps us build a portfolio of wines that showcase sense of place. We're really trying to showcase how the different clones of Pinot Noir grow in different soil types, and by using very hands-off techniques, you can show really sense of place wines to make these stand out.
Right.
How many Pinot Noirs did the 2021 vintage have that
36.
you have bottled in?
36. Yeah,
that's amazing too.
Some people call us crazy, and they're probably right, but
that's a lot.
Patty always had a mantra of, it's somewhat of a disservice to just put this all into one tank and call it something. So,
I think
all
this
these
would be
places are so different and unique, and Oregon has so many different kind of microclimates and things like that. With and elevation such a factor, and soil and all that terroir is a big driving force in all these wines. And so for us to not keep them separate is somewhat of a disservice to the vines.
Well, that's fun though, 'cause you can compare them side by side easily.
Yeah.
Which is what we're doing tonight.
If you're somebody, that's also something Patty was really adamant about. Is we try to keep our price points to the point where they're still accessible, because this is a winery where if you're just learning about Pinot Noir, this is a great place to come because you can pretty much taste them all.
Yeah, no fooling. So the Estate Chardonnay is a $75 price point. This Wadensvil Block Pinot Noir, $55. Yeah. And I feel like I have to mention our social web wine word of the week, because I had to look into this a little bit. Individual bottlings. I didn't even put down a definition, because this is one of the things that you guys are so very proud of, is more individual bottlings of Pinot Noir than anyone in the nation. I mean, might we even say that? I don't know if it's the world also, but I mean, for sure in the United States. So, you
look at the famous vineyards in Burgundy. There's a lot of different producers that make wines out of those same vineyards, and so it's somewhat the same concept of, we're showing you a little snapshot of this little tiny place of, 8 to 12 rows of Pinot Noir, and how this
Yeah.
this sliver of vineyard is so much different than a sliver 2 miles away,
So
8 to 12 rows.
yeah, right.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, everywhere's got their own little microclimate, right?
That's right. That's right. Yep. Our Freedom Hill Curry clone, we get old Curry clone from Freedom Hill Vineyard, and it's 12 rows wide. It's a little less than an acre.
Wow. We're going to take one quick break, and when we come back, we've got 2 more Pinots to open. We got salmon tonight for dinner, Shelley, because we knew we were going to have Pinot Noir to choose from. We'll be right back. Hello, and welcome back to Wine Time Fridays with Shelley and Phil, and with us, Maddie Russell, the associate winemaker with Patricia Green Cellars out of Oregon. Shelley, we have had Patricia Green Pinot Noir, but it's been a few years, and it got off my radar. And so the one we just tasted through, the Wadensvil Block Pinot Noir, we also featured that with Ron Sharman of Fly with Wine 2 weeks ago. And so we thought we'd do that again because it was so good. But Ron loves Patricia Green. And as Maddie said, they got a whole lot of Fly with Wine suitcases right there at their winery.
In case they want to take some home.
I personally own one, yes.
You do?
Which one do you own?
I got the 12-pack bottle.
Nice.
Yeah.
You got the 8. And
it's perfect. I can put 6 bottles in one side and a week worth of clothes in the other, and I'm good to go.
Did you take that to Burgundy?
I did not take it to Burgundy. I didn't want to deal with customs.
Got it.
Yeah, so we shipped ahead of time.
Got it. Beautiful.
Yeah, it was much easier that way.
So we actually had 2 Burgundies this week in a lead up to this episode. You guys do like you make your wine in the Burgundian style. Is that true?
Yes, very. That's what we're shooting for.
Now, of course, the terroir is different than Burgundy. I asked this a lot though about the latitude. Is it in similar latitude to Burgundy where you are?
It is. Yes.
Nice.
But
So there's
elevations. I would say, elevation-wise, Burgundy's higher than most of Oregon.
Got it. Well, we just opened up the 2021 Patricia Green Cellars Mysterious Arcus Pinot Noir.
Yeah,
Mysterious. I love these names.
So when we started working with Arcus Vineyard, it's owned by another winery, and so we had to sign a non-disclosure agreement with them to not specify where it was from. So when we started working with this, it was odd for us to not be able to put the vineyard name on a label. And so we had to come up with some kind of name to put on it because it's single vineyard worthy, but we weren't allowed to say the vineyard. And
anywhere on the bottle.
Right, anywhere on the bottle. And so we came up with the name Mysterious. Well, over time of working with them, they decided that
you guys were worried.
What they were worried about in the beginning never happened, and so when we signed the new contract with them, they were like, it doesn't matter. You can put the vineyard name on the label. And so 2021 was the first year that we were unable to, or we were able to put the vineyard on the label.
Nice.
Unfortunately, though, we no longer are able to get the fruit. Yeah. So oddly enough, the year we were actually able to reveal what vineyard it was, it's probably going to be the last time we have a chance to work with that, at least that particular section of the vineyard. Hopefully in the future,
wow.
The opportunity will arise again, but due to the other winery structuring differently and things, we kind of got the pinch, but that just makes it more mysterious, I guess.
It sure does. I don't think people understand all the logistics and variables and moving parts to produce a wine. When you're working with other vineyard partners and things like that, there's just a lot of moving parts, and it sometimes, probably many times, it just doesn't work out the way you planned it to. That's
it.
One of the things about wine.
It kind of works in either yearly or like 3-year cycles with fruit contracts, and so a winery might choose to not make as much wine for a little while. Maybe their inventory is too high, and so they cut back, and then they'll sell the fruit. And then for places like us that like to do the things that we do, it's like right when we start to get this brand established, then it sometimes gets swept out from under you. It's just the nature of the beast, I guess.
Yeah. This is really good, though.
This is so.
Oh yeah, this is a historic Dundee Hills vineyard. It was an honor to be able to work in there. It's it's a very storied site. And excellent wines, beautiful Pommard, Clone, Pinot Noir, all planted in the early 1990s. It was an honor and a joy to make these wines every year.
This is about as smooth Pinot Noir as I've had in a long
the Dundee Hills with the volcanic soil is very giving. It's very smooth and lush and really long finish. It's a crowd pleaser. Yeah.
It's a crowd pleaser. Well, this crowd is pleased, that's for sure.
Crowd of three.
Well, that's right. I want to begin with the ABV on all the 3 wines we've had so far. The Chardonnay actually came in at 13.5, which is a little bit hotter than that Wadensvil block Pinot at 13.2. Yeah. And this one is 13.5 also, which is perfectly fine. Thank God it's not up into the 14s. I guess with a Pinot, you're not probably going to get that very often, which is good.
No, we're definitely picking earlier and earlier now.
Is that right?
It goes a lot faster. We used to have these like 3-day windows you can kind of count on, but stuff goes really quick nowadays.
What are the bricks? What do you like the bricks to be when you're picking these wines? Are they similar or are they going to change?
Typically in the past, 23 bricks was what you were shooting for, and you'd be lucky to get there. Nowadays, if you get to 23 bricks and you come back 3 days later, you're probably at 27 by the time you're done.
Oh my gosh!
So it goes fast.
Wow!
So you definitely got to be on top of things, and we've noticed that we pick a lot earlier now than we did before, because stuff just there's so much sunlight and heat in the fall compared to in the ripening season than there used to be, and so things just go a lot faster.
When the bricks hit a certain number for 23, and you're coming back, you get your pickers ready to go the next day, and it's at 24. Does it ever fall back to 23, or does it keep going?
No, it'll go to a certain point, and then you're heading in a direction that you don't want to be heading in anyway. So you got bigger problems than bricks.
You don't need any late harvest Pinot Noir.
Late harvest Pinot Noir. That's right.
That's right. We try to get on it way before. Yeah, we try to get on it way before that problem arises.
Sure. How long have you been at Patricia Green? Because rumor has it you're in the restaurant business, and someone said you should come over to the winery, and that kind of started your career a little bit.
Yeah. I grew up in I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and I went to high school in Lansing, Michigan. And I moved to Portland because I wanted to be in the restaurant business. And in Michigan, there's not a lot of tourism. So I wanted to move somewhere where there's hotels and tourism and things like that. And so I moved to the West Coast and was in Portland working in restaurants. There was a lot of culinary schools in Portland at the time, and so it was kind of a hotbed to get into restaurants and you know, cut my teeth. And I was working at Oyster Bar in Portland, and Patty came and did a winemaker's dinner. And she was like, "Hey, you should come do Harvest sometime." And I kind of joked about it at first, and then in 2007 I came and did Harvest here, and I've been here ever since.
Wow.
You know, that's kind of the way it is.
Yeah. Well, Harvest was over with. I stayed in a tent in the front yard during Harvest, and when it was over with, I begged her to let me rake leaves in the vineyard.
Nice. That's so
The
cool.
grapes were calling.
The grapes were calling.
Yeah, I got bit by the bug, you know. So.
Yeah, you did. And it's really obvious when people are bit by the bug.
Yeah.
Really obvious. Because look, it's a lot of work. Okay. Again, this is really glamorous. We just poured a $100 bottle of Pinot Noir from Patricia Green Cellars. The glamour behind this
A lot of work.
is a lot of freaking work.
Yes.
You know, behind the scenes stuff.
It's a lot of dusty roads and skinned elbows and cuts on your hands and all kinds of good stuff.
Well, I mean, even the Chardonnay, you're out of concrete egg, right? And,
well, we have concrete cubes that we do primary fermentation in. Because we feel that really elevates the minerality in the wine.
Sure does.
And then we élevage in punch-in barrels, so not a lot of oak impact.
But cleaning those concrete,
we like to keep it bright.
Cleaning those concrete tanks can lead to scuffed elbows and knuckles and hands, right? But you're past that. You don't have to do that, right?
No, we do everything around here. It's not
nice.
It's not that glamorous.
I love that. This is, like I said, this is fantastic. Where in Burgundy? Why did you go to Burgundy to create some relationships, or just to see where the state of Burgundy is?
This right here, this Cooper on my hat, Caduce.
Yes.
We've been buying barrels from them for 25 years.
Oh, nice.
And we were working 2020 with a winemaker came and did Harvest with us. Is a good friend of Jim, the owner. He was out of work at the time, and so he came and did Harvest with us in 2020. And he told us the story about how he bought barrels from this Cooper one time, and he invited him to Burgundy, paid for his trip. They actually cut down a tree when they were there and showed him the process from start to finish, how they make their barrels. And so Jim and I looked at each other and we're like, wait a minute. We've been buying barrels from these guys for 25 years. So Jim writes him a long email and says, hey, we want to come to Burgundy and see the whole process. And so they brought us over to Burgundy this year and set us up. They gave us the 5-star treatment. They definitely pulled out the red carpet. We went to some really great domains and drank some great wines. Every single meal, even the meal I had in the train station, was delicious.
Wow. Hello and welcome back to Wine Time Fridays with Shelley and Phil, and our guest of the week, Maddie Russell, with Patricia Green Cellars out of Newberg, Oregon. Please tell me I said that right.
You did. You got it.
Thank God for small miracles. How far is Newberg from Portland, Matt?
It's about 30 miles.
Okay. not bad.
30
then,
miles southwest of Portland. Yeah.
Gotcha. So are you getting some, Russian River Valley, they get this nice stuff off the ocean, the cool nights. Is that kind of similar to what you're dealing with there in Newburgh?
Yeah, it's a small coastal influence, I would say. We're about 60 miles from the beach. But in the afternoons in the summertime, about 4 o'clock, we kind of get this nice little breeze that comes in.
Nice.
It's not overly too windy. It's just a nice little breeze that kind of puffs through for a couple hours, and then that's about it.
It's very refreshing.
Yeah, probably is.
Yeah, it's really nice in the afternoons in the summertime.
Yeah.
Maddie, just so you know, we don't typically decant wines because we love how they evolve from the time they open. And these are 21s, so they're not going to be would you also say these are fairly young? These are your latest releases on these Pinots?
Yeah, for us, that's we're just now starting to get into 22s. 21 was the biggest vintage we'd ever made. We did that on purpose to kind of soften the blow of losing 2020. So we kind of pushed the structural limits of our property as much as we could. We were doing fermentations all over the property in order to. We had a tent set up in the crush pad just so we were able to make more Pinot Noir to be able to somewhat make up for 2020.
Well, Patricia Green Cellars is notorious for making fantastic Pinot Noirs.
Notorious. Oh, yes.
And what we just opened is a 2021 Patricia Green Cellars Notorious Pinot Noir.
Yeah,
Still notorious. They actually gave it a name.
Yeah, so there's a funny little story attached to that as well. So I'll talk a little bit about what Notorious brand means, and then I'll tell you where we came up with the name. The Notorious is different every vintage. So what we do is we go and we taste through all the new barrels first, and we tag them and pick them out, and our favorite ones and ones that we feel express what we're trying to express with this bottling. Something that's going to be time worthy and has a good wood integration and things like that at a young age, so that we know that these wines are going to be built to last. And so every year we go through, taste all the new barrels, and then we come up with a blend. So typically it's, some years it might be Estate heavy, some years it might be Dundee Hills heavy, some years it's a perfect combination of all the different places. It's completely random, other than the fact that it's 100% new oak barrels and from that vintage. So that's the only ongoing nuance to that wine. The name Notorious comes from Jim and Patty met at Torrymore Winery. Patty was the first winemaker at Torrymore, and she hired Jim to help her. Well, in February of 2000, they were both abruptly fired from Torrymore, and that's why they bought the property we own now and started Patricia Green Cellars. And so when they had a single barrel of Pinot Noir that they just thought was so much better than the rest of all the other barrels. And so they did a single barrel bottling and had to come up with a name. And so they picked Notorious because it stands for No Tory Us. So
that is hysterical.
More, and so that's where the Notorious name came from.
That's great. That's hysterical. This Pinot, I haven't tasted it yet. The nose is offering up a little bit more weighty Pinot Noir.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have guessed this as a
Oh,
Pinot
yeah. I mean, the color
if I
on this,
saw it.
if you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, is a little darker than a typical Pinot. I mean,
Yeah.
when you look with a white background, it's got that lighter body, or lighter color. But this smells like it's got a little bit of weight to it, which I kind of like.
Yeah, it's typically, historically, it's always been kind of dark and rich, and laden with good barrel spice. It's very approachable when it's young, but it's built to last a really long time.
15, 20 years?
Yeah, at least. Yeah.
Okay.
We had a 20-year-old one not too long ago that was still singing.
Wow.
That is so
this is
fun.
really good. It doesn't seem like a Pinot Noir that you'd have to lie down. You could drink it now.
Yep. Yep. That is the whole thought process that goes into that, is that, it's 100% new oak, but that wine can stand up to it. And also it's an homage to the Coopers for creating barrels that integrate into the wine really well. And they frame a picture. We like to think of our barrels as picture frames. And so a picture frame can ruin a wine, or ruin a picture, but a picture frame should elevate a picture. And it looks like we froze again.
That's all right.
Oh,
We're not
no.
gonna. I think it'll show up on the regular when
We'll
we do
see.
recording.
So when you talk about a blend, these are a blend of vineyards, not a blend of grapes, right? Are
Correct.
all of your Pinot Noirs 100% then?
All our Pinot Noirs are 100% Pinot Noir. And then all our single clonal bottlings have just that particular section from that vineyard. And then our single vineyard bottlings typically don't have more than 2 different clones in them. But it's more of a picture of the vineyard. And then we only do 2 blends. That's the Notorious and then our Reserve, which is we kind of make Reserve the opposite of everybody else. Reserve for most people is their best barrels put together in a blend. Our Reserve is the byproduct of all these single vineyard bottling. So same everything except for we just put it all together because we want to have something that kind of we can put out into the world and have kind of our entry level wine, so you can kind of see what a snapshot of what the whole cellar tastes like together, and then we break it down into its individual components.
That is a lot to manage.
It is a lot to manage. This is fantastic Pinot, by the way. There's been this little seemingly this little trend on some Pinot Noirs that are a little bit more weighty that I personally kind of like. It's not like I don't like the fruit-driven lighter Pinots, but it's kind of nice. You kind of get almost the best of both worlds on these little 80 Pinots. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. Well, Pinot Noir is extremely versatile, and I think that our winery shows that.
Yes, for sure. And this one is $85.
$85, yep.
And the alcohol on this?
13.5.
13.5.
Yep. While we wait for Maddie to maybe unfreeze, but maybe not, but that's okay. We're working towards wrapping this thing up. I wanted to say some of the wines that we enjoyed this week on this 3rd week of Oregon Wine Month. We haven't even mentioned that. The 3rd week of Oregon Wine Month, they get 5 Fridays in May this year. That's right. So that's fantastic. We had. Can you read these because there are a lot of them in French?
No. Chateau Fleur Cardinal, Intuition de Fleur Cardinal, Perdu Anas Sauvignon Blanc, LVE, Provence Rosé, 2018 Bourgogne Haute Côte de Nuit,
Yep.
Mercury Premier Cru Clos du Paradis.
I want to say it's pronounced Curé.
Hooray.
Yeah.
Premier Cru. Clos de Paradis, and a 7 Cellars Alloy Reserve
Cabernet Sauvignon.
We can say that.
That's right. We had those 2 Burgundies that were absolutely sensational. Were there any Burgundies that stood out for you when you were there, Maddie?
Oh yeah, we had a really good tasting at Domaine de Arlo. Those wines were spectacular. We had a really great tasting at Domaine Dujac, which was the first time for me. I'd never had any Domaine Dujac wines, but those really were spectacular wines. They were showing the 22s, and then the Domaine Bonde de Martre. I had a 1993 Chardonnay there that
Wow.
that was the best thing I think I've ever tasted.
A 31-year-old Chardonnay.
Yeah, it was spectacular.
Wow, that is
So did they call
cool.
that a Chardonnay or did they call it a Burgundy?
No, well, it's Chardonnay, but it's a white Burgundy.
White
Oh,
Burgundy,
okay.
right. Man, that sounds so much fun.
Yeah,
so much fun. We have some things coming up in the future. I'm going to blaze through these. On the 21st, World Chardonnay Day, 23rd, International Chardonnay Day. Again, we're very confused about that. Next Friday, the 24th, is the anniversary of Judgment of Paris, which I have to mention because it really was significant. Then in June, we have the 5th is Bubbly Day. 10th is National Rosé Day, as we like to say, rosé all day, every day. And then we've got Kara and Keelan Dixon from Rosemary Manor right here in Idaho, kick off Idaho Wine Month in June. It's like one state's wine month after another. What's coming up next week, because May is not only Oregon Wine Month, it's also Aussie Wine Month. We are going to be taking a bit of a detour from Oregon all the way down to Australia as we taste through wines from Molly Duker with the blue-eyed boy himself, Shelley, Luke Marquis. They have a wine called the Blue-Eyed Boy.
They do.
Yeah. So
And we have it.
We will be tasting through that. A huge thanks to today's sponsors, Rocky Pond and Revora. I got to tell you, Matt, you guys are making some fantastic Pinot Noirs. If you
And Chardonnay.
and that's Chardonnay, by the
And
way.
for those who say they don't like Chardonnay, taste this one. You will love this one.
Oh, this is crisp and bright and just like you said, just so mineral. It lets the fruit shine, where sometimes oak can get in the way.
Yes.
Yeah,
So-
I agree. Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining us today. With a little bit of knowledge, wine becomes a lot less overwhelming. Thank you for listening. Matt, Thank you for being here. I love the way you are frozen right now on our screen because it looks very happy and excited. We will see you next week with Molly Duker Wines.
All right, my friends, take care.
Thank you for spending part of your day to wind down with Shelley and Phil. Remember, you can listen to any episode of the Wine Time Fridays podcast by visiting winetimefridays.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And join us on our Wine Time Fridays Facebook page, Instagram, or on Twitter, which is @VintageTweets, for daily conversation. Until next week, here's our toast to you, to health, wealth, abundance, gratitude, peace on earth, and of course, romance.